What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Box to Box. My name is Harry Hicks, and I am joined with Max Botcher and Thomas McKeon. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Harrison.
Welcome to the podcast.
Let's get it going.
I'm so glad to be here.
Good.
What else would you be doing?
All right. I don't know. I have some.
He's
I
a
have,
busy
I
man.
have, I have friends. I have
true.
other people I can
He's
be
a
hanging
busy
with.
man.
I choose to be with you guys.
Well, good. Well, good. Did
Let's
you guys
talk
watch Champs?
Champions League, yeah. Yeah, I did. What, we had 4 games over the past 2 days. I did not watch the Man City Sporting one. That one would be tough to be a Sporting fan, especially
Yeah.
after that 4-0 first half.
Yeah.
Bernardo Silva is incredible.
I did
Yeah,
see
he's
that.
crazy good
that
right now.
strike, yeah.
Absolute strike.
Timed
And
off
two-
of the
little
ground.
hat trick.
Half volley.
Yeah. Nasty.
Beautiful.
Max, what happened to Bayern Munich today?
I do not like... One, I think we're really missing Davies, but I don't like the 3 center backs in the back. And I know that's like what Nagelsmann likes to do, but there's like no chemistry in the back. And I feel like no one Sule looked kind of awful. Hernandez is our best defender, but he kind of looked lost. Like, where am I supposed to be? Where am I supposed to cover? Because of that, Coman and Gnabry are like the wing backs too, which is like kind of odd, and it's nice because Sané is playing like that second cam position, and he's been great in that, but Leva didn't do anything all game. Usually we're fine with the defensive like flaws because we can outscore other teams, and we didn't do that today. And we looked so vulnerable on counterattacks, which was so bad.
Okay. So it's a defensive issue and like not really that strong in the build-up.
Yeah, not that strong in the build-up. I am happy that it was just 1-1 though. I think Champions League, it's good to like get through those like tough games too. You're gonna have those tough games, and
Right.
at least we didn't lose, and we're gonna be going back home for the second one. So, I mean, obviously they got rid of the away goals thing, so that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But do you guys have an opinion on that actually?
It doesn't really make sense as a rule because it makes sense a tiny bit, but for it to hold that much weight in a lot of
Yeah.
I don't.
the games, it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I
So,
agree that it was a little ridiculous, but I did love it.
Yeah.
I feel like it added so much drama.
And you saw
That
it
was so fun. All the like crazy comebacks were possible because of those away goals.
right, and we were watching the Real Madrid PSG game. I feel like if that was a away game for Real, and they just sat back and they were just trying to. I feel like it absolutely changes the dynamic because the home team now has the advantage at home, so other teams are gonna. The away teams aren't looking to score anymore. They're trying to reduce the impact of like Real Madrid was trying to reduce the impact of Mbappe and Messi while they're at home,
Right.
instead of looking for those away goals. So it's kind of like most of the game was them defending in a low block and wasn't that exciting.
Yeah.
So I feel like it will affect these games.
Yeah, I think Madrid was actually upset that was Ancelotti's game plan, was just to like park the bus.
Right.
And it's interesting now too because the second team, because they're at home, they kind of have the advantage. Like let's say it's 1-0, extra time and all that stuff is going to be played in front of their fans, and
Yeah.
you can't really like get by that. I mean, it would be the same case even with the away goals kind of thing, but it is something to kind of consider, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that Real Madrid game was interesting because we talked about like last week how Madrid has the better midfield. They should be able to control the game. PSG is not going to be able to press offensively or defensively. But that was like the total opposite. PSG controlled the whole game. Madrid sat back. Kroos and Modric and Casemiro were not able to control the midfield, which is unusual.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I don't really know why that was the game plan, and it didn't work.
It's not good for your confidence, I feel like, as a
No,
team.
not at all. And because they didn't have
he's-
anything going forward.
Yeah, and he's basically saying like we're not good enough to beat this team, so let's just like sit back, limit their offense, and
Hope
then
for a
try
counter.
and hope we win at home, basically.
Which is a crazy game plan against PSG because I feel like you can easily hold possession
Yes.
when they
Right.
only have 6 defenders.
Yes.
Or 7.
Yeah. I don't know.
I agree. It was weird. But shout out Mbappe. What a goal. That was
Holy
crazy.
crap,
Incredible.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
jaw
That was-
dropped.
yeah.
I know that was awesome. I watched it like a couple times with replays. But I mean, I think it's crazy that with Neymar, Messi, Modric, Cruz, all those players on the field, Mbappe is by far the best player, and he's the goal scorer, he's the difference maker, which is pretty impressive and pretty cool.
At what, 21, 22, something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
feel
it's
like
changing
he's
of the
been-
guard, really.
Yeah, I feel like he's been doing this forever, kind of. But it has been kind
Right.
of like 3-4 years. Yeah.
He's been at this level. He's coming into his peak. Like that game was just like a locked game, and then Mbappe did that.
Right.
Yeah. There's very few players that can score that goal. So
In the 90th minute too,
90th
like
minute, yeah.
everyone was dead. Carvajal was
Carvajal
like burned all game.
Made a
all
fool out
game.
of Carvajal the entire game.
So
yeah. How about that Inter Liverpool
That's what.
game?
Yeah, I want to talk about that game. Was crazy.
That game was awesome.
I wanna hear about
I
this.
really enjoyed watching.
Like
it.
all out attack the whole time. It felt like they were in
Really?
like the 90th minute of a tie, like the second leg.
for like
Oh my
good
God. I'm gonna
like
watch the
60
highlights
minutes of that
later
game.
then.
And poor Inter, they controlled. Not controlled, but they controlled the better half of the game. They had more chances, and they had more quality chances, and they lost 2-0 to two set pieces,
It's
which is
really
unfortunate.
That's
It was
tough.
honestly, they played just about as well as you can. They just didn't have luck on their side almost. And I feel like when you're playing a team like Liverpool, you have to be playing at the top of your game, and you have to get lucky.
Yeah. There were routes for them to score pretty consistently, and that's what I was so impressed with. They played similarly to Ajax in that they weren't afraid. They honestly were like intentionally passing it all the way back to Handanovic to really spread out the field. Then they would start their build-up, and like half the time they would successfully build up, and then because there's so much space now, they would be in with like a 3v4 against Liverpool's back line. And if you do that pretty consistently throughout the game, you should be able to score. I feel like we'll talk about this in the Napoli game too. If they didn't come up against Virgil van Dijk and Konate had a great game too, I would think they would score 2 or 3 goals.
Right.
And plus their last balls weren't as crisp as they should have been. I feel like they had chances to score even though they didn't have that many shots.
Çalhanoğlu was so good. I feel like that's one of the first couple of games that I've really watched him play and paid attention. But he was incredible. He had that one shot that hit the underside of the crossbar, which would have been like a spectacular finish. But some of his play just in the midfield with these like the tight control and these like cheeky little passes I was like having so much fun just watching him play in the midfield. And I think part of the problem that Inter faced is they were controlling possession in the midfield, but they couldn't really get any possession in Liverpool's third to kind of get a period of sustained pressure, which maybe could have helped them get kind of a second chance on a shot. But Çalhanoğlu was like crazy. Like all these little like outside the foot passes, just like right around players or between their legs.
Bundesliga boy.
It was dope. Yeah.
And to do that against Liverpool was impressive. And that, like,
Yeah.
Inter looked like one of the best teams in the world there. They, what they were doing, how like spread out they were, and still making like clean passes, like is very dangerous. You saw that a few times that they had like they were playing out from the back, and they kind of had some risky balls that could have resulted in goals. But for the most part, they throughout 90 minutes had crisp passes, and that's like you need to be technically gifted. Every player on the field needs to be technically gifted to do that. So yeah, I was incredibly impressed by that.
Where did
Yeah.
they play?
At the San Siro.
Oh,
So,
okay. So
which
that's
is
tough.
unfortunate because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
should have won that game and then went into Anfield and tried to hold on. But
Yeah.
instead
And
they're
Anfield
2-0
is a
down.
tough place to make a comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Speaking of Inter, should we talk match of the week?
Yeah, sure.
So last week, match of the week was Napoli versus Inter Milan. They finished up 1-1, and I think we all had Inter winning.
Yeah.
So
we all lost.
we're not
points.
doing very good on these predictions.
We'll fluff the
It's
numbers
tough,
at
it's
the
tough,
end.
yeah.
We'll say we all.
No
It's a
one's
long
very-
season. It's a long season.
This is our podcast.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. But I did it was a my biggest takeaway from that game was Dzeko. I thought he was like so good. That his finish was really good. I mean, even today, I thought he played pretty well.
Yeah. A little slow, but he's
no,
35.
But the thing is, but he doesn't like. It's not noticeable the way he plays, and he's not like Giroud. I feel like is slow and more sits in the middle. But Dzeko's out on like the wings, dropping back into the midfield. It's really impressive, honestly, because he doesn't have speed on his side, but is still able to do nice like interplay in the midfield and break away, and somehow then find himself open on the wing. So I was really impressed, and I think that speaks to why Inter are top of the league and why they could replace £100 million Lukaku or Euro Lukaku with Dzeko on a free, I think. And he's a great player.
They're still top of the league.
Yeah.
He's scoring goals.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of Napoli?
I have nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I feel like the game.
Honestly, the game wasn't one of the first games that we picked that wasn't the most exciting. I think it was because, like, Napoli scored that.
They scored right away.
They scored the penalty right away. It was kind of a weird penalty because it was Osimhen kind of trying to flick the ball on, and he got fouled in the box. So it wasn't like someone driving towards goal and getting fouled. I always hate those where it's kind of
it was weird. He wasn't even like in really. He was just like back to goal.
And like if he wasn't fouled, the ball would have done the exact same thing. Which there was a similar penalty given against Chelsea in the Club World Cup final against Palmeiras. Was that last week? Have we talked about that?
No, we haven't. That was on Wednesday.
Where it was just like a handball. Thiago Silva had a handball, but it was like knocked off the head.
That was like a knuckle graze. That was weird.
It was like I feel like in the box fouls and handballs should be treated differently. It has to like be really affecting the chances of a goal being scored.
Yeah, I mean that's so tough to draw the line. But I do agree. Yeah, it was an unfortunate penalty.
But then Napoli kind of just sat back, and Inter scored that lucky goal, and I feel like they were pretty content with taking the point away from each other.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel like when both teams are that high up on the table, they're like they don't want to lose, more than they want to win. Right. Mm-hmm. So they're doing everything they can to stop losing, even if that means they're not going to win. They're happy with the draw, and I think that's sometimes what you get when there's plenty of time left on the season.
Yeah.
So they don't want to mess up now and like lose their momentum. They'd rather just like take this game as a wash and earn their points elsewhere.
Smaller teams.
Right.
Smart move.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk this week's match of the week. Leicester versus Wolves. A little bit of a different match of the week, not as, I guess the teams aren't kind of as big, but I do think this is a really interesting game because of how Wolves have been playing lately and how Leicester's been playing lately. I think Wolves, under their new manager, are kind of like a different team. Their defense is locked up, and then they have the weapons going forward to score goals. And then Leicester, over the past couple seasons have been in and around the top four, and right now they're sitting at 11th with really not many signs of life.
No.
So, Max, you're starting.
I'll start off. Well, this is going to be fun for me because you guys definitely watch the Prem more than I do, so I feel like I'm the least informed here. But I'm going to go Leicester win, even though Wolves is trending better than they are. I'm going to go 2-1. Strong 2-1.
Okay, strong 2-1.
Yeah, what do you guys tell me?
Excuse me. What I looked at, it's hard to just like look at the numbers and try to predict. Also, similar with form, I feel like that's kind of what's it?
Arbitrary.
Yeah, it's. But Wolves are seem to be on the rise, and throughout the season they've underperformed their expected goals, which honestly means that they've been creating a lot of chances and just haven't been putting it away. And usually in the long run that reverts to the mean, so it means that they're probably going to put away. I mean, if they do perform as they should be putting more chances away. Well, Leicester, even though they've been performing poorly, have been like pretty outperforming their XG, meaning that they're getting lucky,
right,
and they're still in 11th place. So I think this means that I feel like Wolves are pretty heavily favored in my book coming into this game. They did lose Adama Traore, but I feel like Adama Traore was flashy at Wolves, but he didn't have the end product, as we all know, which is exciting that he has started to get some. Yeah, at Barcelona, I feel like that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna go 2-0 Wolves. I feel like they're gonna.
That's what I was gonna go. So I guess I'll up it.
Yeah,
I'll go 3-1. I guess.
Yeah.
I do think Wolves are gonna win, and I think it will be comfortable. And I think my reasoning for that is the fact that Wolves have been so strong defensively recently, and Leicester. Most of their goals, I feel like, are either like, a moment of brilliance or they get lucky.
Right.
At least recently. And so I think when you come up against a stronger defense, the odds of you getting that luck or getting that really brilliant goal are even slimmer. And so I think they're going to struggle to score. And then Wolves going forward, they have Raul Jimenez, they have Podence. Who's the guy in the midfield, the younger guy? Shoots from distance.
I don't know. Neves?
Yeah, Neves. Ruben Neves.
João Moutinho?
Yes, him, but more Ruben Neves, has those strikes from range. And I think that's just too much for Leicester to handle. I don't think their defense is strong enough. I think Soyuncu is pretty prone to error recently. And then also their midfield, you have Yuri Tielemans and Wilfred Ndidi, who are on paper, are some of the better midfielders in the Premier League. But honestly, Yuri Tielemans has not looked that strong recently, especially defensively. And so I think, that assurance in the midfield that Leicester used to have isn't really there as much as it was. And so I think someone like Ruben Neves can kind of strut his stuff and maybe get a goal from either farther out or thread a nice assist in. So I think Wolves are going to... I think they're going to get the win, and I do think that's kind of a statement win for them. That's not that they shouldn't beat Leicester, but if they win with kind of some oomph, that kind of shows that they're here to play. They're sitting in, I think, 6th or 7th right now. I think 6th above Tottenham. Tottenham obviously have some games in hand, but they're kind of here to play if they do get this win with some conviction. So,
all right,
I'm Team Leicester.
Lock it in.
That means
Final
that
answer,
it's most
3-1?
likely going to be a tie, right?
Right, yeah. None of us can get points.
None of us are going to get points.
I should have said it. Okay, let's do some hot takes. For this week, we've each picked or made 2 kind of hot takes that we're going to run through and have a little debate or discussion around these said hot takes.
I'm going to flame you guys.
Yeah, who wants to start? Either of you.
Max,
Tom,
you go.
you start.
Aw, shucks. All right, so you guys told me to come up with a hot take, so I was doing a little research. My original inkling was Carabao Cup has to go. What is that? Like an extra cup? But then I started doing a little reading about the history of the English League and how it's the English Football League and the FA. FA is the FA Cup. English Football League is the governing body of the Championship in the League One and League Two, and it used to be the governing body of the English top league until in the 90s the Premier League was founded. And the Premier League was founded because the top clubs in the Premier League wanted more broadcasting rights. Essentially, each year they were only getting like 50% of the broadcasting rights of all 4 leagues. And they were like, we're bringing in pretty much all the viewers. We want a larger contract. And negotiations basically took place over and over again in the 90s, like a decade of negotiations. And how the clubs broke away is they went to the FA and said, we want to join you as the Premier League. And that gave them some credibility. They're with a organized organization, so it's the FA Premier League. There was still the regulation or relegation and promotion between the lower leagues, even though it's technically a different committee, the EFL. But through that deal, they like massively increased their revenues, and it sort of like transformed the league into this commercial league that we know today. My hot take is a similar event is going to happen in the next 10 years where essentially the Super League is going to happen because of the amount of money on the table. Like Deloitte and I forgot who else was in on the investment for the Super League, but it was like these clubs were going to get $300 million a
JP Morgan,
year.
actually.
Yeah, JP Morgan. They were going to get like $300 million to join this league. The jump in funds is similar to the amount of jump that happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
You can see that in the transfer, the like highest transfer in like the 90s before the Premier League was like 3 million, and within 10 years it was like 30-40 million.
Yeah.
Where Chelsea was getting Shevchenko for like 40 million. And that was possible because these clubs were getting richer and richer. And my hot take is Super League's going to happen. It's not going to happen like they planned it, where it was like a locked set league. I think they have to allow the other teams the potential to make it to that league to share some of that revenue, or else essentially their domestic leagues will just like kick them out. And I guess my idea of what it would look like would be the Champions League would be like a competition like the Carabao Cup, where it's like additional to a Super League, and the top 4 English clubs get to make it, but then teams like Chelsea, Man U are not in the Premier League anymore.
Well, so before you go,
Right, I would get to the logistics, but I think that's going to happen where there's a joint European league, and those teams will not be in their domestic leagues anymore.
so I feel like that's already kind of happened with the new Champions League format,
Right.
with the 2024 like overhaul. With they're adding they're getting rid of the group stage. They're adding 4 more teams, 5 or 5 or 6 more teams. They're adding 4 games to the calendar. So what it is just, I think right now it's 34 teams or 32 teams.
Yeah, I don't know.
8 groups of 4, 32 teams. It's going to become 36. And they're just going to play, it's all like one league, and every team plays 10 games, just randomly selected throughout the league,
Right.
which I feel like is
I guess that is like what.
kind of what that is. And because, I mean, when you get in the Champions League, you get a lot of money. This is more like a league style. Each team is playing 4 more games. More teams have the chance to get in here, which is just more revenue all around. So I guess I agree with you, and I think this is kind of a rendition of that, or how what you're saying could play out, and is playing out, because right now they're just getting more games on the calendar of a higher level of teams throughout Europe, and also gives smaller teams more of a chance to get in there. But there's also the contingency that of the 4 additional spots, 2 of those spots are given to 2 teams that didn't qualify for the Champions League but have the highest like UEFA coefficient. So basically, like if United doesn't make it, they're getting in. It's a safety net, so these big teams can get in and still bring the money in.
Right.
So I feel like that's kind of what that is, honestly, or how it can play out, because that's still, you still have to qualify for it. You can still not be in it next year, which kind of keeps the, openness of the sport in there. But also, it's more of like a league style, and there'll be more games and more emphasis on it.
Yes, I agree that there's going to be more games, but I think the goal of sort of, instead of what it's going to be like 36 teams, I feel like these bigger clubs are going to go for a smaller league where they can play each other confirmed like twice a year. I think the new format of the Champions League provides a few more games, like the one we saw today, Inter versus Liverpool, the one we saw yesterday of Real versus PSG. I think their goal is to fill up the calendar with games like that, because that adheres to a global audience, and that's what's going to bring in the huge money compared to the pretty big money that Europe already brings in.
I agree, but I think the argument against that is those special games won't be special anymore when they're being played every weekend, right? Because the problem with the Super League was you're going to have Bayern versus PSG or Real Madrid versus Chelsea. Like, if it happens every weekend, it's not special. And that's the same argument with the World Cup happening more often. Is like, no, the reason why we love it is because it's so rare. It only happens every 4 years. And I think if you have something all the time, it loses like the value of it. Like it's special because we only get these games like once in a blue moon and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's special for us. I don't think like the people making the money from it really care about it as much. You know, they see more games as more revenue, and that's why every year there are more games on the calendar for these players. And I think it would take a very like severe drop off of viewership of those games for that actually to like dissuade them from putting more games on the calendar. So I don't know. I definitely could see that happening. And maybe, I think this Champions League overhaul is kind of the first step towards that, or like a kind of an in-between. And so maybe 4 years later they go another step further.
Right. I think it's going to be a process of
but I feel like that's likely, and that's kind of the rules and stuff, or the leagues are kind of always changing, and so it's likely that something at least similar to that or will happen at some point.
It's not as stagnant as we believe, because we're like, since we've been watching, Super League is the biggest like proposed change we've ever seen. But it happens a lot. The Premier League is a big change. And I guess my reasoning for it is, and it's kind of the reason why Real Madrid started the Super League. It's like, take Bayern for instance. Bayern like is on a global audience only in the Champions League, versus Chelsea plays Liverpool and Man City. Those are the big games of the weekend. So the other big teams not in the Premier League, because the Premier League is becoming pretty huge, are seeing all this broadcast revenue going to England, and they can't really compete with the teams in their own leagues. And that's why I think those teams are going to see, not those teams, but the people profiting from those teams are basically going to be like, this Bayern is going to come up and say Bundesliga is not really worth it to play anymore if we can join a Super League where we play. Like, it will take away from the game, obviously, but playing Chelsea, Liverpool every week, everyone would watch those games.
Yeah. The only thing with that is like that's the exact opposite of what Bayern said. Was like, we want to play in the Bundesliga, and they want to stay in their league, and obviously from a business aspect, yes, more games, like more money, but I think it's just like already with the Champions League, the biggest clubs are getting bigger, and that's creating a huge gap between all the other teams, and things like that are only going to make the gap bigger. And so it's going to get impossible for some of these clubs to even compete with the big clubs.
That's the point. I feel like is that because that gap is growing is the reason these teams even can think of stepping away, because they're like, we are way too good for our league. We're not making any money, or like we're not making the amount of money we could be if we're staying in this league because we're too good. The gap is too big for us to even be here. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the way it would work. Yeah. And I think that's the way, Perez from Madrid is kind of seeing it play out.
Yeah, I think it's coming in a time where the sport is, especially in America, becoming a lot more popular. And just like that global audience can't wrap their head around 80 teams in each of or like 100 teams in each of the top 5 leagues. So I think, from a business perspective, they see the best way is to consolidate the clubs that people know and just like create a league like that. Which would suck. It would suck, kind of, but it's also like, I don't know, if it happens, it happens, and I guess this is kind of like an American perspective, because if I was born in England as a Chelsea fan like 30 years ago, I wouldn't want them to leave the Premier League. It would be the end of an era versus us who aren't ingrained in that kind of just like tradition, sees it as something that happens, and we get crazy amount of games. I feel like people that are new to the sport won't have a problem with it. I think that's the leverage the business people have.
Yeah, I mean, we're all Americans, like we all watch like American sports, and I think the biggest difference is there's a natural like up and down, like American teams, basketball, football, whatever. There are certain years where they're good and there are certain years they're bad, and that's because of like the draft and like everything. Like you don't really have that in soccer because the biggest clubs they're always going to be big. They can just buy whoever. And I don't really know how you like kind of go about that. Like, I guess for like NFL teams, they're big teams, but like they have bad years. They have salary caps to like kind of level the playing field, like things like that. And like in soccer, you have like financial fair play, but how much does that do? I feel like,
Yeah, I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah, I feel like, not much else to say. It's just, I think it's bound to happen.
It's probably inevitable.
It's just going to be something that happens. I think it's, but like Premier League happened, and then
I think the thing will be is like the reason the Super League didn't work is because they weren't transparent at all, and they just dropped it and said this is happening. No one else has a say. But the Champions League, it's much more gradual. They said, okay, in 4 years, this small step is going to happen. And the fans were much more receptive to that. The public was much more receptive of that. And that's likely their pathway to success, to get something more like the Super League. Because they can't just say, okay, this is happening, surprise, because that obviously didn't work. They already tried that and it didn't work. So I feel like the more, I guess, at this point, proven process is to kind of do it more gradually and rely on the Champions League until the Champions League is the league more.
It's gonna be a slow process, and it has to have a potential for the other clubs to break into it. That was the other point where the Super League was a lot
exclusive.
Exclusive, which is
all right.
Let's move on.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm gonna get support here or if you guys are just gonna go into me, but I was thinking about this watching the Super Bowl over the weekend, but then also watching soccer the day before. And
it's the most American sentence ever.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, so much time is wasted. Like, time wasting is, like, a part of the sport in the last 10 minutes or even earlier for some teams.
Right.
And it's so frustrating a lot of times, injuries, stuff like that. So, obviously, there's stoppages of play in American sports. Why doesn't soccer as a sport implement whenever there's, like, an injury, a ball out of play, why don't they stop the time? And they can do that by, instead of playing 90 minutes through and through, why don't they play 60 minutes and stop the time when the ball's not in play, is my thing.
Okay, yeah, this is a very American episode, isn't it?
It is a very American episode.
Okay, well, I think because, like, first off, because, like, advantage, that, like, kind of sways the time. It can sway the time. Also, if you're in on goal, often the ref won't blow the whistle, even if you're a little bit over. So that would, there would be like buzzer beaters or something, which would be kind of weird.
It's happened in high school. That's the most American soccer has
college
been.
Too. They play with the time. They stop the time.
Yeah,
and
there's
then
like
they
buzzer
count
beaters.
Down. The clock actually counts down. So it's like last 10 seconds, like 10, 9, 8, which I think would actually be good because a lot of times there's so much controversy with like stoppage time. When is he blowing the whistle? Is that enough stoppage time? Like that gets rid of so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about referees. And I think part of the sport is like a little bit of ambiguity. It's like, okay, is that a foul? Is it not a foul? Is that, and like, or is there more time to play? Oh, is the ref going to blow his whistle? And like, yes, that is unstructured and leaves a lot of room for error or controversy. Mm-hmm. But I think it's fun. I think like that's like part of the game. I think part of the, like, it's enjoyable to have a little bit of gray area. And yes, it does make controversy and it does make me unhappy at times when the call doesn't go the way I want it to. But I think it's part of the game, and I think to a certain extent, time wasting definitely is. That's part of the game. It's a tactic, and so I think like I don't mind time wasting or like when players like roll around on the ground because they're injured.
It's a skill.
But they're wasting time. Like that's like tactical play. It's
Yeah.
part of the game.
Yeah.
It's like frustrating to watch from a fan, but it's part of the game. Like that's like
I think it's so frustrating, and I kind of want it out. And like it is a tactic of the game, but we wouldn't had this rule like if this would happen, if they would stop time. And in regards to advantage and stuff like that would still happen. I'm just saying injuries and when the ball's out of play. Those are the times when like you would stop the clock basically. And I want to ask you guys, out of 90 minutes of the game, how many minutes do you think the ball is in play?
51 in the Premier League.
Yeah, 51. 51 minutes.
I saw that post.
Yeah, you saw that post?
Yeah.
51 minutes. The
Yeah,
average
actually.
across 19 leagues is like 52 minutes
That's
of the
actually
ball
crazy.
being in play.
Yeah, because extra time added on is never like
No.
20 minutes.
No, it's never 20 minutes, even though a lot of these things, like even if you have an injury, it's never going to be more than 10 minutes max. So
Right.
51 minutes of actual playing time out of a 90-minute game, I was like blown away by like that number.
Yeah. That's honestly, a fair shout. My roommate brought this up and I like attempted to argue and then I was like kind of swayed because it does leave up a lot of responsibility to the ref to like get like and even if he has like the fourth referee with a stopwatch, they still seem to get it wrong a lot. Like you can obviously see that with substitutes at the end of regulation. They never account for it like correctly. It always seems like they only do like half or whatever.
Yeah.
And the only argument for keeping it in, I feel like buzzer beaters shouldn't be a thing in soccer. They should let the final play out. But I agree that you can still have the referee with the ability to blow the whistle at the end, but just stop the clock when there's an injury, when there's a substitute, when there's the ball's out of play. And if the reason is because the players are exhausted and playing a full 90 minutes would be terrible, then shorten the game. Make it a basketball.
If you make it 60 minutes, you're getting more game time.
Yeah, you're
Get more game time.
playing-
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
We would
So
increase the
you're-
amount of like
getting more game
goals
time.
if we actually
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah,
60 minutes.
guess I'm like very for the gray area that soccer brings, but I do, I guess I could see that. If
Yeah.
I could see it for like injuries or when it's out of play. But I like Thomas was saying, I don't think like buzzer beaters.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that.
They should
I
implement MLS because that would be American.
Well, that
Yeah,
can start. That can start. Yeah.
That's true. All right.
Yeah. That's mine.
all right.
My first hot take is that no 100 million, I guess euro is the currency they're normally issued in. No 100 million euro signing has been worth it, including Mbappe. Yes, and so I think he would be the most contingent one. So I think I don't know if I can do these all off the top of my head, but I think there was 10 of them. So Griezmann, Coutinho, Dembele, all to Barcelona. Hazard, flop. Lukaku is still kind of up for debate. Jack Grealish.
Grealish has actually had a pretty good season. I'll talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
That's another hot take.
Yeah, that's a very hot take. Jadon Sancho. Gareth Bale he's had a good career. I think he's a debatable one. And then Ronaldo to
Madrid.
Madrid.
Juve.
To Juve,
Juve, yeah.
which didn't really, so
Yeah.
I think, and then Neymar and Mbappe.
Yeah.
Neymar was like 220 million. So I think the debate out of all of that, the debatable ones I see are Bale and Mbappe for being worth their price. But I still don't think they're worth it. And I guess I'll speak to Mbappe because I think he's more, we see him scoring these crazy goals. And so I think if he wins the Champions League this year, it's worth it. But in the past 4 years he hasn't won it, making it not worth it. And so I think he was brought in to win the Champions League, not to win League One, not to win like the whatever Coupe de France.
Yeah.
So the fact that they haven't won when he's there means it wasn't worth it.
Right.
And I think all these other players, to like not, I guess to generalize a bit, but I think it's pretty valid. They've all pretty much been flops.
Yeah.
To at least some extent.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of them are worth it. And I don't know why that is. It seems kind of weird that once you hit that tick, it doesn't work out. But like someone like Kai Havertz, I think seems like he hasn't fulfilled his potential. But I think at 70 million, he's already made himself worth it by the fact that scoring that Champions League goal and then scoring this goal or the penalty in the Super Cup, that kind of seals the deal on his price tag. Mm-hmm. Whereas these other players, I don't think have done enough to, give them that sort of value.
I think Mbappe is worth it. I think the price tag is different for different clubs. Clubs like Man City and PSG aren't struggling to fill their other roles. Like PSG has a pretty good back four and midfield, and it's not like they went all in on Mbappe and they aren't able to. They got Messi, they got Ramos, they got Hakimi. It's not like they're struggling. They're putting all their. It's not like that American leagues that you have to spend a certain amount of your salary cap on this player. So I think a player like Mbappe, though they haven't won the Champions League, has significantly improved PSG and has reduced the competition of PSG because Mbappe is on PSG and not on Real Madrid right now. And that's probably a reason why they won.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's actually a big point.
So I think, no, so I honestly, if PSG wins the league this year or wins the Champions League, my opinion will be kind of swayed, but I guess I'm not worried about PSG's finances and I'm not worried about their spending because they're not worried about finances. They don't obviously Mbappe brought in a lot of revenue for them and jersey sales and viewership and all this sort of stuff. But I don't think he has proven that value.
Right, but you're saying that it wasn't worth it to pay $100 million to Mbappe when another club would. So you're
That's
saying
fair.
You're saying that it wasn't worth the deal to bring him to PSG when I think yes, it was because of how he improved the team and because PSG isn't strapped financially. So yes, if Aston Villa spends $100 million on Mbappe and it cripples their team, that's not worth it at all. But like teams that
have the money,
it
doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt. Well, I will say is a lot of those $100 million have hurt them. Like Juventus hasn't been great since they got Ronaldo because that strapped them at least somewhat financially, spending $100 million and then him leaving 2 years later.
I actually think they made it all back in jersey sales.
Yeah,
actually, yeah. I mean, of course,
But
they have to pay his salary,
yeah,
right, which is the biggest thing. But I think they sold more jerseys, like euro amount, than they paid in the transfer fee, which is insane.
Crazy.
Which is insane.
That's absurd.
So, yeah, I mean, Barcelona is probably the biggest one. Like Griezmann, Coutinho, Dembele. Like that's over 400 mil.
Right, and obviously, like Mbappe is debatable, and he's like the only one on that list that I really see debatable. I actually know Bale. I do think Bale. He had a good string of years there. He had a really. I think it's kind of seems to be leaving Madrid with a little bit of a sour taste, but he had a very good career there.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, the rest of them, I'm not really. I want to hear what do you have to say on Grealish?
Grealish probably hasn't had the goal or assist tally, but I've watched him in a few games for Man City, and he is still a very good player. And though $100 million is a lot, it's not as much for Man City, and it takes him away from a lot of the bigger clubs in the Premier League. If you look at the stats, the kind of underlying stats, he is at the same level as Mahrez and Sterling and the other players on Man City. He's just a younger guy who's going to be there for a while. they got him for 100 million. That's a lot. They secured one of the top talents in the Premier League for 100
Is
million.
he younger than Sterling?
Isn't he like 21? Sterling's like 24.
I think Grealish is like 24 or 25.
Oh, is
I
he?
thought he was older. Yeah.
I think he's
Oh.
like 24, like maybe even 26. And I think Sterling is like 20.
I think Sterling's 26.
I think
Yeah.
he's
Something
a
like
similar
that.
player to like Sterling and.
If he was 21, yes.
Right.
I don't.
I
think
didn't
he
realize
is.
he was that old.
I think he's like 25 or 26.
I think it's a misconception that he's not doing that well this season. I think it's tough to do well, to like really shine in the Man City side.
That's fair.
I think he's doing the role he is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. No,
Still not worth it.
no, I don't like because okay, so I don't think there was no other teams that were going to buy him for 100 mil. He was like Man City was the only one that was interested in buying him. Their competition, he's obviously was not a threat at Villa because Villa was not a threat in general. So, he could have gone to another team in a couple of years and been a more influential team on the field. But that being said, I think if they're just buying him so another team doesn't have him, like I don't think that I don't know.
Yeah.
It just like I feel like they should be able to do more with him. Like make him that key player in your team, which he's not.
Right.
He's not starting like.
That is fair that he's not the catalyst of that team.
Right, and so I mean maybe like I think that's why he's not worth 100 million in my eyes is because he went there and he's not like obviously Pep switches around his team, but Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Sterling play more than him most of the time.
Foden too.
Yeah, I don't know about Foden hasn't played as much this year, I don't think, but
I think Foden's played.
maybe.
But I guess they all cycle.
That's the
they
thing.
all
Yeah,
cycle.
he's just kind of like another cog in the wheel, which
Yeah.
I mean, obviously City can do that for 100 million, but I don't know.
I also think that
I also don't know like how to it's also very hard to quantify
Worth.
what 100 million of value
yeah,
is.
I was gonna say like
that's
100 million
very-
because the 100 million isn't like it's really just like a bribe to Aston Villa to
Sell him.
terminate the contract and give exclusive rights to Man City to create a contract. So and Man City can turn around and do the same and sell Grealish to Real or PSG in a couple of years for like probably 70 million, maybe not 100 million, maybe more. So I think price tags are a little overrated in general because you can always not always but like there's a potential to sell the player on, and it's really just like a temporary bribe if the player is improving to a less or not a smaller club in order to get the player. I think a bigger I feel like if a team like Man City or PSG deems a player worth bringing into the squad, they have the financial capabilities to just like to do it, and they should always do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue against or like money and someone being worth 100 million when these clubs have infinite resources for better or worse. So like I think that argument will kind of always win. But I guess for the value that they could have gotten other players with that same money, I don't think those players are worth it.
Yeah,
That's fair. Yeah.
fair.
No.
Okay, so at this point in time, right, not thinking about anything else, not thinking about potential, talent, whatever,
On my mind.
Neymar is not a top 15 player in the world. And I think
Now I'm
that,
trying to think of 14 other players.
and I think that's, for us, that's like crazy to even consider. And Ballon d'Or actually had him like outside top 15.
Why is that
16.
crazy to consider?
Because he's probably the most talented football player outside of Messi I've probably ever seen, talent-wise. Pure talent, I think it's Neymar.
Wait, so you just told me to like forget talent and like value and all this stuff, but what am I?
His play. Like, how is he playing? Is he playing as a top 15 player? And yes, he has injuries and stuff, but him playing, he's not top 15 for me.
Yeah, I mean I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right?
He shouldn't be.
I guess there's no argument.
Yeah,
It's sad because of the talent that he has, and because of injuries cut him short and stuff. But I was looking at his time at PSG since he got there. His assists and goals have like consistently decreased since he's been there. It started like 23, 17, 15. Like,
I mean, I think he left Barcelona trying to become like.
Sorry.
He left Barcelona trying to become like great.
Yes.
And it didn't work out because he fell into Mbappe's shadow, who was
which is crazy.
5 years younger than him.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of and yes, obviously injuries have gotten to him, which is beyond his control and unfortunate. But
Yeah.
I think that's a valid point. I don't think you're gonna have too much trouble arguing that one, but I do think it is unfortunate because he is the most expensive player ever. He has great talent. He's at Barcelona was, like one of the best players in the world or top 3,
Yeah.
So it is unfortunate, but I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. I guess not that hot.
Yeah, cool take.
Cold takes.
Okay, yeah, so I don't know. We'll see if this is cool or not either. But Pochettino has obviously been heavily linked with the United job after Ragnick steps away. And I think my take is that Pochettino nor any other coach will fix United. I don't think like Eric Ten Hag is going to come in and United are going to be with it. I don't think Pochettino is going to come in and have these wing backs or these outside players and they're going to be United again. I think this problem seems to be so much more deeply rooted. The fact that they were very poor under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They thought he was the problem. They sacked him, brought in Ragnick as this kind of wonder coach, and they're playing about the same.
Yeah.
With basically no difference. And so, they just basically wasted a lot of money or caused a lot of drama. And maybe they didn't waste it, but not much has changed in the long run. So I don't know if that's. I guess the problem then, if it's not the manager, would point more towards like the board members or something along those lines. I don't know exactly who the blame falls on, but it seems like a much higher up issue, which is a much harder one to solve. And I don't think it could be the players too. Obviously the players aren't great or aren't playing well, but they can play well. They have played well before.
It's just
it's a bigger issue than just the manager.
It's the insistence that they spend all their transfer budget on an attacker every single transfer window, and they remember they had like they've always had an incredible attack, and then like Chris Smalling at the back, Lindelof, players like McTominay and Fred are their starting players along with Cavani, Ronaldo, and like Bruno. Like what? It's always been like that. It's always been like that. It's just like a mismatch between the board and the board and the understanding of how to win games. It's a board that wants to sign flashy players versus winning games.
And
it's always been
now
like
more than ever, it seems to be biting them in the butt because they're not performing, and the attack isn't playing out the way
which I love.
It could. Yeah, no, I think it's.
I hope they never figure it out.
I like some turnover would be fun to see just to shake things up a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I don't. It seems like Pochettino keeps being pointed to as the answer, and I think that's far from it.
No, I feel like it runs way deeper.
It's tough because United is such a storied club, and it's such a big club in Europe, just in general, and I think there is an unbelievable amount of pressure just on everyone at the
I'm
club,
sure,
which doesn't help. Like I don't know if it has to do, maybe it's ownership. I don't even know who owns United.
Like
the
Glazers?
Yeah. Who they hate because they run it they run it like a business that's looking for profit and not a club that's trying to win games.
Yeah. But it is that prestige and stuff that helps them, and the prestige, aka money, that they can get these big players to keep coming in,
right.
And so
keep them afloat.
You can have these players come in on huge contracts to a struggling club, or a club that's maybe not going to make the Champions League, but they're getting huge money. They're playing at Manchester United, which has all this prestige behind it and history. And so, of course, they're still going to go. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have we seen?
They still got Fred Tomine in the middle.
Yeah, have we seen anyone
And
like
honestly,
transfer there and perform like really well? I guess
Bruno.
or step up. Yeah,
Bruno definitely, but
yeah.
now he's floundering.
I think it
Yeah.
was Bruno came into a role that was like vacant when he came in, and like I don't want to diss Fred and McTominay because what they've done is
Honestly,
pretty
they're not
impressive.
bad.
They're not
Yeah,
bad.
I like them.
But put a world class talent in there, and they will like flourish. They'll go.
Yeah, I mean, I
crazy.
think the thing is you can't. Yes, Fred and McTominay play very well, but they're also not like world beaters. You know,
No.
they're not going to play at Cristiano Ronaldo's level, and that's kind of what they're expecting of the team with these crazy attackers.
Yeah.
But yeah, their defense too is like Wan-Bissaka.
Meh.
Yeah.
It's all meh.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think we're always like in this podcast, we're always like, well, we'll see what happens over the transfer window, but likely they'll just sign another attacker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll
Who's
see.
up next this summer?
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think we have time for Chelsea and Bayern this
Yeah.
week. Shout out Chelsea winning the
Club World Cup.
I forgot what it's called. I was about to say the Super Bowl.
Another
No, so,
trophy.
yeah, another trophy for Tuchel. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Kai Havertz with the goal, also exciting. Ram with the goal.
On with goal.
Um,
Aspi with the sick fake out for the
With
penalty.
the pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that? That was cool.
That was nice. Yeah, so I think good weekend for Chelsea. Hopefully they can come back to the Premier League this weekend after quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
Get a dub. against
Chelsea,
Palace.
Chelsea,
They
Chelsea.
normally do pretty well against Palace, so I'm optimistic. But unless you guys have anything else to add, I think we will end it here. So
Dry.
Oh.
thank you all for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.
Peace, boxers.